And actually, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Because I know me.
So that's our life mission. That's the McShin's mission.
You don't have to understand my boundaries to respect them.
Well, no, I'm the president and co-founder of McShin, a person in long-term recovery from substance use disorders.
How do you go about fixing the damage in the trust between the family after you get out?
Okay, I gotta work on that.
Celebrating my 6 months, didn't have cake.
Yeah.
Gosh, shut up.
Hello, folks. John Shinholser here, live from Richmond, Virginia at the McShin Foundation, and welcome to Getting the Heard podcast, an award-winning podcast. I am John Shinholser, your host today, and I'm also the co-founder of the McShin Foundation, board member emeritus, president emeritus, and now I am the senior peer around here. And some new guy asked me, what's that mean, John? It means I got the most clean time, and I've been with the company the longest, so don't give me a hard time. I can probably get you in trouble. But we got a wonderful guest today, Emily Stuckey from St. Louis. Is that right, Emily? From St. Louis, correct?
St. Louis, Missouri, yep.
So why don't you introduce yourself, your title, who you work for, and we'll go from there.
Okay. I'm Emily Stuckey. I'm the CEO of ARCHway Institute and the founder of the National Peer Recovery Alliance. I'm also a person in long-term recovery. I have 6 years of happy, joyous, and free recovery from substance use disorder, and I'm a certified peer specialist in the state of Missouri. Like John said, that's the gist, the elevator speech on Emily.
Well, I tell you what, you come a long way in a few short years, it seems to me. Now, is Stuckey, just out of curiosity, was that the name of that travel plaza they used to have all over the country?
Yeah, wasn't it like a Stuckey?
Pecan roll. They were famous for that.
Yeah.
No relation?
I don't think we're related. Actually, it's pronounced Stuckey like cookie. And Stuckey. We got married. This is my married name. So we got married over a year ago now. And my husband goes, some people call him Stuckey and some people call him Stuckey. So I'm out here trying to explain.
Correct him. So it's Stuckey.
Stuckey like cookie.
Oh, my goodness. It should have 2 O's in there.
I know it.
I mean, see, the English language, it's just so hard, man. But every time I see the name, I do crave a pecan roll. So
yeah, there you go.
That's what they were famous for. So you are the leader of the National Peer Recovery Alliance, correct?
Yes.
And what exactly is the National Peer Recovery Alliance?
Well, it is a association of substance use disorder peers from across the country. So a couple major focuses are on workforce development for substance use disorder peers, and also it's kind of our advocacy wing as well. So advocating for the peer workforce, but advocating also for recovery support services.
And the N stands for national, so it's an emerging association, hopefully to be in nationwide, all 50 states, I assume.
Yes. Right now we have 4 active state affiliates, but we have about 17 or 18 states represented within the National Peer Recovery Alliance.
Oh, that's a good hit. Now, how long have they been around?
Since 2020. So we really started meeting virtually in the midst of COVID.
Wow. So this is a COVID breakout brainstorm. Sitting around with nothing to do and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to put this brain to work.
Yeah.
So who's the founding agency of this?
So ARCHway Institute is the kind of umbrella organization. So I'm the CEO of ARCHway, and then NPRA is an official division of ARCHway Institute.
Well, tell us briefly about ARCHway, who they are, what they do.
Yeah, it's 501c3, been around for 10 years. We do a combination of education to diminish stigma, increase awareness related to substance use. We do peer support and connection to resources. We don't bill for peer services. We're just a bunch of people who have been there, have done that. We will get on the phone with people, let them know they're not alone, and then connect them to the different treatment and recovery resources in their community.
Now,
And
how'd they get started? Who founded them? Why did they get going?
it was founded by my husband, John, who's also in recovery from substance use disorder, and his mom and dad. So as a family, they wanted to help other families who were just like them.
Well, isn't
That's what they
that, isn't
did.
that nice? So,
Yeah.
John, he's in recovery, correct?
Yep.
How long he been around?
10 years.
And how long you been around?
6 years.
I see a little disparity there.
Yeah, in the beginning, I did feel like I had it was like a weird, he's got way more figured out than I do. I will say that.
I got the same problem in my house. You know, I got the clean time, but my wife wears the pants in the family, so I'm sure similarities there. So when you started MPRA, how hard was it to roll it out or convince people this is important, it's needed?
You know, people were so the current advisory board of MPRA, majority of them have been around from the very beginning. And so many of the same folks that were on those early calls are still on it because they know how important this work is. So we got a little bit of pushback, like, well, aren't there other organizations out there that are doing this same thing? Aren't there other peer associations? But we really do. Our niche is in substance use disorder peers. We want to represent substance use disorder peers. And the peer workforce, not, yes, we advocate for recovery, long-term recovery support services, but really focused on the workforce development piece. And I think with the growing need for peer support, the fact that peer support's put into every treatment agency, house, RCO, that just people can see the need. So it wasn't tough to get people bought in, but on my end, it was tough to, you had to be very consistent. I had to have a meeting every single month. I had to follow up with some of the members and get them engaged in between meetings. I had to come up with the agendas and all the things. So it was work it wasn't hard to get people bought in, but it was tough on my end to keep it going.
Well, anytime you're a founder, co-founder of a new mission like that, you're going to end up doing all the work.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to my world, man. I mean, when I first saw that, just out of full disclosure, I am a board advisory member, correct?
Yep.
That's what it is. That's what I'm called. Yeah, I saw that, I guess, about a year ago, hanging out with old Jimmy McGill down in Arkansas. Mm-hmm. And I saw this National Peer Recovery Alliance. I'm thinking, what is that? I've been around a long time. I've never heard of these people. And, I talked to y'all, looked into it, and, I asked questions. And I have a lot of institutional knowledge on what's out there in America, what has come along in the last so many years, couple decades. And for the viewers that are going to be seeing this later, I've celebrated, I'm coming up on 41 years clean, and that's inclusive of being sober as well. This summer, should I make it. But I've been part of a lot of groups, a lot of organizations. I've seen a lot of things out there, and there are some good organizations out there doing good work. But one thing I'm certain of is there's just not enough of these organizations to cover all the need, all the capacity of needs. Mm-hmm. So I saw this as a great caveat to try to capture people like myself nationwide to get re-engaged, re-involved in some of their founding principles of their recovery in their community. Because I see a lot of, old-time principles getting kind of lost in the sauce, you might say. Mm-hmm. And, so I do see a need for this. I'm excited about it, Yeah. And one thing that when we started McShin in 2004, there was 3 major pathways to recovery in America. They were, 12-step and faith-based. And there was, methadone was out there, but that wasn't really called a pathway as much as a harm reduction. Now, fast forward to 2023, we got, I guess a dozen good pathways, maybe 2 dozen, a lot of medication replacement therapies out there, so forth and so on. But I got to thinking, man, we're losing the founding principles of this whole recovery movement. And so I want to make sure we can retain, to some degree, those founding principles and values so embedded deep in our fabric in the recovering community nationwide. You got any thoughts on that?
Well, I think, and so with NPRA is a very grassroots organization. So we do want the voice of all the peers, people in recovery.
All the peers, whether they're certified, accredited, new, old, associated with the bureaucracy or clinical.
Right. We want to really listen to them and share their experiences because, there's a lot of, and I think as we are sharing those experiences, all of the basic principles are still very relevant to recovery today. They're just not shared as much anymore. And so being able to get the voice of the people who are, all over doing this work in recovery, working their recovery on a daily basis, I think we're going to get a lot of those. Those principles will still ring true and be able to highlight, I think, those principles.
I'm up in my head right now. I'm going down memory lane here as you're speaking. I'm picking up on some words. Going back, peer wasn't even a word. 19 years ago when we started McShin. I mean, it was a word, but it wasn't an industry word as it is today.
Right.
Back then, I think we just called it old timers in recovery, typically abstinence-based recovery.
Mm-hmm.
They saw a need to change our system, so they organized, collaborated, they rallied, they went to local, state, federal agencies, and they started advocating not only for change in policies, but funding for basically what amounted to, instant connection to recovery. Back then it was really to meetings, but now it's called recovery supports, connection to recovery support service providers. So I got to witness and watch a whole new dialect, a whole new dictionary of words, so to speak, for this peer space we're in now. We wrote what we called back then. Okay, let's just not call them old timers. They started inventing language. When I say they, many organizations, co-signed by providers and funders such as SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse Mental Health Service Administration. I never in a million years back then would I dream and think forward that I went from an old timer to a recovery support specialist or peer recovery support specialist that would provide linkage to recovery support services to include and be inclusive of medication-assisted providers and treatment providers. I mean, it's like, I'm an old brain, it's hard. But I see this young population emerging and percolating. And on one hand, I'm pretty optimistic. I say, well, this is great. You got all these young minds, young folks. I consider you a young mind and a young person. You're coming together. And you get to do a quick study of what came before you, and then you can take that knowledge and parlay that into, future, I guess, systems of care and services. So, do you ever give thought to like a guy like me and our journey and what we went through to get to this point?
Definitely. I mean, I think we can either repeat history or we can actually learn from our history. So, the peer movement, I mean, there have been moments in our history, and I think it's in that Bill White's Slaying the Dragon book that references peers early on in the workforce, not as much in the industry as we talk about as we talk about them today, but it has happened, and that movement did die, and then it came back, and so we want to make sure the peer movement sticks and stays. Yeah, and grows and develops, and peers become, just another part of the treatment team. So we don't want to repeat the past.
Well, what creates the repeat? What do you think that comes from? I'm quizzing you now. I'm testing your institutional knowledge.
That's a good question. I feel like that's a question for you.
well, I mean, historically, if you want to track substance use disorders, basically in America, peaks and lows. Like when I do a little lecture, for example, you know, an opening history lecture might look like you can go back to the first physician. And there again, I get all this from William White. So if he's wrong, I'm wrong, okay? You know, me and Bill are actually friends. And when we built McShin out, I used his monologues that he was writing for the Great Lakes ATTC. He wrote like 5 monologues. He might have got a 6th one, I can't recall. But each time he'd write a monologue, are you familiar with his monologues?
A little bit.
Well,
Not all.
I'm real familiar with it because my wife and him were friends, and she'd come back from these national meetings and say, "Here's a manuscript of Bill's next monologue," you know. So I would get this stuff, see it, read it, implement it here at McShin. So when it would come out, we're already doing it, and it used to really aggravate our department leaders here at the state level.
Yeah.
How does McShin already implement something? We're just now getting a monologue on. You know, I had a cheat sheet. That's why. I'm not accidentally ahead of the curve, man. I did my homework. But historically speaking, like the first physician in America that identified addiction, alcoholism as a disease, a treatable disease. And the way you treat this disease is you take the drug alcohol away from this person, you put that person with other people who had a similar situation, and you basically put them in a sober environment, and once they get good and sober, you explain to them how important it is not to take that first drink, so to speak, and then you go out into your community and you look for folks that need this type of lifestyle coming from the old lifestyle, then you help that person, and who does that sound like to you, knowing what you know about the history?
Peers?
Huh?
It sounds like Peers.
Well, that was actually a doctor, and
Okay.
the first doctor in America to identify this as an illness that's treatable.
Yeah.
Because up until then, society was like, this is, alcoholism. Once you're an alcoholic, you're always going to be one. You're going to die one. You're screwed. Well, the first physician to claim it a disease was Dr. Benjamin Rush.
Okay.
And he signed the Declaration of Independence. So we had that, a long time
I didn't
ago,
know
we
that
knew what
history.
worked.
Yeah.
And throughout history, it was like, okay, then the temperament movement came on strong. And then when they built our railroad out, the Chinese came over here and brought opium with them.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of opium, do you know anybody that overdosed on opium?
Opiates?
No, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Number one, you can't get regular opium anymore to
Yeah.
smoke. But number two, you don't OD from it. Well, back then, the Chinese started commingling with the white people in America. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden, we had a problem in America. A stigma problem, a discrimination problem. So then drug laws were starting to be invented, and one of the first drug laws was ban Chinamen and opium.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what I'm saying, speaking to earlier, why do you suppose we need to reduce stigma, increase services, and involve peers? Because America has a long history of ups and downs with this, and as wars create addiction, which create problems. A lot of people don't realize during Prohibition itself that it was not illegal to be drunk or to consume alcohol. It was only illegal to manufacture and distribute it. But what changed in the world we live in, it's like it's illegal to be consumption of drugs. Mm-hmm. So they went from, a manufacturer distribution problem, now the consumer, which created the criminal justice system and which creates stigma and here we are now in the space realm. But see, I think it's important for that National Peer Recovery Alliance to go out there and find those grassroots people you speak of, mm-hmm. and align ourselves and build a great big constituents of concern. So when we need to put the hammer down, we got the juice to do so, because you're going to have a lot of challenges. I'll be long gone, right? 40 years from now, you'll be the old lady in the space, right? Trying to preach to the young kid. Here we go again. I remember this old guy way back when telling me about this moment. So you have a tremendous, mountainous task in front of you if you're the chosen one for this.
A lot of pressure there.
Well, it's a day at a time. So, you know,
Yeah.
a day at a time, we can do anything, you know. So it's just a
Yeah.
matter of just not giving up, you know. You see all
Exactly.
those motivational videos, you know.
Yeah.
Never give up, never give in. Day at a time, you can handle anything.
Yeah.
So,
And I mean, on a day-to-day basis, I see like I can't give up because there are so many people that see the need for the work that's being done. So I think a lot of other people are in the ring with me and they keep me going too.
oh yeah, there's only 25 million like-minded Americans out there, and really all you need to do is, you know, get you about 500,000 of them, and
There you go.
nobody's done that yet. Nobody. In my 40 years of recovery, I've never seen an organization, one, you know, an advocacy one, a provider one, a policy change one. I mean, AA went to Congress in the late 60s, and they got some good work done. But because of their anonymity, they really weren't supposed to be engaged. And the National Council on Alcohol and Drug Dependency, you know, they lasted 60, 70 years, but they finally, you know, fizzled away. But they never had that type of membership that's needed today.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, you know, you got to get some numbers. How are you going to track numbers? You got any idea?
How are we going to attract numbers? Well, I think doing things like this, we get our name out there, we attract more people, getting our messaging out there, finding those people who are like-minded and pulling them in. You know,
Now,
you keep talking to me about swag, like we need T-shirts and lanyards and hats and all that fun stuff.
Oh,
So.
swag is cool. Now, do you see yourself as a group that when we do see bad laws pop up, to go after them, you know, advocate for, you know, what it should look like, stuff like that?
Yeah, so we are under a 501c3, so we can advocate and we can educate, and I do think it's part of our responsibility as a 501c3 is to advocate and is to educate our representatives and our legislators and things like that.
Teach our population how to advocate, right?
Yep.
Now, what about, like, you mentioned peer workforce? Now, obviously, there's many different versions of what peer workforce are going to look like, and what the rules and policies are going to be, and what the funders are going to be reimbursed for and whatnot. So I just noted SAMHSA, Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration, they just rolled out a lot of different, you know, maybes on this,
Yep.
and I'm sure you read them.
Yep.
You got any thoughts on some of that stuff?
Oh yeah, I think we're gonna get together as a MPRA group and kind of come up with our comments because it's open for public comments. But I'm trying to think of some of the big ones. Looking back at that, or thinking back to
Emily,
that.
I'm the old
were the
guy.
big ones?
I'm the one that ain't supposed to be able to remember things, man.
Recovery. Okay, I'll just go to the top ones if you just want to get into the hard
Yeah,
conversations.
go right to the hard one.
Recovery time. I think we've taken recovery time out of our peer work, like to qualify.
One
as a
of those
peer.
SAMHSA number, they look like it was like almost going to be shameful to be an old timer in this space. You can't have that in there.
Yeah,
What is that all about?
I know it made specific comments about abstinence-based recovery.
Yeah, we could have every pathway but abstinence based. Now, what's going on here? Did I
Yeah.
read that right, or was that a misread?
There's a lot of. I think they shouldn't. I mean, and we've talked about this a lot of times. Like, there's a lot of stigma right now around abstinence-based recovery, when the majority of those of us who have struggled with substance use disorder do use abstinence as our pathway to recovery.
A benchmark or a goal
Yeah.
or a place to be.
Yeah, it's a piece of it. There's a lot more to it, but it's just funny that there's so much stigma.
Yeah,
around
out
it.
of fairness, it's true that, you know, less than 3% of the population that engage in recovery actually achieve abstinence the first time. Yet, abstinence does seem to be a goal. But I think the mindset now is, since 97% of the people are going to fail at their first attempts, then we need our peer workforce to be made up of failures, so that's the lived experience they're going to have, is the failure lived experience, how to fail, live, and survive, and come back and help these folks. But now I see where you have chronic lived experience failure people, meaning they're chronically failing, yet they're engaging new folks, sending the signal. I hope the signal, look, don't give up. See, I'm a peer leader. I'm constantly failing, and I'm still here, and you can do that too. Now, to some people, that sounds like Latin. This is crazy. But to other people, it makes perfect sense. So I guess what I'm saying is that's fine. There's room for everybody. But as an abstinent-based guy, I don't say, well, let's just eliminate certain pathways in language because we don't want to offend nobody. But it's like they want to remove an abstinent-based, our pathway because they don't want to offend nobody. See what I'm getting at here? Does that make sense?
Exactly. We should. The same is true really with the word recovery. There's kind of so much stigma around it.
Oh, they completely
created more.
Yeah, they completely rewrote the definition of recovery. I remember over the last, since I've been engaged with Samson now for 19 years, it's like periodically, what's the definition of recovery? And it starts out one thing, and here we are years later, it's a whole different thing. It reminds me of that book I read. What is it, Animal Farm? Is that the one, where the commies came and took over and they changed everything you thought you was getting? I mean, I'm an open-minded guy, and I do want to make sure my life, energy, and efforts do help people. I don't want to hurt nobody for sure. Right. And I know you don't either. And, but I think we got to do a better job outlining this stuff,
Yeah. Well, and if we don't have any recovery, I do think it's important to have some recovery standards around becoming a peer, because I think that is what elevates the workforce. So if we have individuals who are, a few months into
what's
their
the single
recovery,
most important standard you think the workforce should have? I think ethics. Ethics should be the main standard. Yes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No sleeping with the person you're trying to help. No taking money from that person. No manipulating, conning, or exploiting that person. Ethics, I think, should be the top thing. That's what I think.
And keep in mind that, a lot of people who are early in their recovery are still working on some of those ethical boundaries and dilemmas. I think peers do need a bit more recovery to their belt in order to really be successful and not be put into positions where they might relapse or things like that. I always say, I never want, if we're going to put peers into positions to relapse or to not be successful, then we don't need a peer workforce. I want a peer workforce that feels strong and confident and well developed and well trained and well supervised and successful at what they're doing.
Some of the best peers I know don't have the first credential. They're just wonderful, honest, straightforward, recovering folks. And I can see where if they want to be in the workforce, they should have some basic training and understand on how this workforce works. But, I fought Samson on this to no avail. Years ago, I was a big fan and supporter of let's have substance use disorder peers, addiction and alcohol recovering peer workforce that primarily target those with addiction issues, alcoholism and drug addiction. Mm-hmm. And but they commingled mental health, severe mental health, with addiction. Now, I know there's a lot of, cross situations there.
Yeah.
But the way the workforce is going, years ago, they had what they called a paraprofessional. A trained person that wasn't necessarily a clinician, but a professional, paraprofessional that thought, walked, talked, and acted like a clinician. And I see us heading back to that clinician world, getting away from the founding roots and principles of an authentic, genuine peer, somebody in recovery, living recovery, that facilitates educational information and other supports to help a person rise up. You give them that hope shot, They see somebody doing well, they want to be like that person. And, I'm a little bit bothered by, some of those Samson recommendations look like you need a 4-year degree. You can't have a felony. And, I can see the old Animal Farm picture taking place here, Have you given thought to that?
Well, I think they did. So I know they had removed the GED. I think even in the standards that just came out, it talked about removing the the need for a GED, which I think could be. I think.
Let me tell you how
having a
that works,
GED
Emily.
would be
Here's the
good.
reality. Here's the reality shot, right? Right now
Yeah.
in Virginia, the only one that really reimburses for a peer is our tax-funded, bureaucratic-run agencies, our community service boards, and every job listing they put out there that pays a peer a meaningful wage, a full-time wage with benefits, it all starts out with some sort of college degree, no barrier crimes. The two things, some of the two most qualifying, enduring, this is what you want on your resume. Hey, I'm a convicted felon. I've done these things. I've been to prison. I got these crimes, but I'm recovering now. I'm good. Those are the ones you want up in there. You're not going to find but so many people that fit that criteria, and that's a barrier. That's how they prevent. They can demonstrate and say, look, we're trying to hire these people. Well, guess what? You never listen to the original theme of what it is that's so effective and what we're looking for. I mean, now I don't know about Missouri. Maybe Missouri hires felons with GED or less. I don't know that, but not here in Virginia.
Yeah, we do have.
Few and far between. I mean, it's difficult.
Yeah, we have an exemption process. So I do think there needs. I mean, you have to have something, just like with any workforce, but we can't create so many hoops that it's impossible.
So many barriers. It's like, you know what? And that's because they're complicating it.
Right.
If they're going to be running the cash register at your community service board, maybe you do want somebody that doesn't have a conspiracy conviction or a theft conviction. But that education piece is really, really hard for me to swallow. That college degree piece. Yeah. I mean, I love college. I hope you go and everybody goes, but I think the top peer positions, college should not be a requirement.
Yeah. Well, what about so I do feel like it's helpful for any person to have a GED or whatever they call it these days. But what do you think about that?
I think it's bullshit. I think any educational stipulation is a barrier and it's wrong. If you're a good peer and you can kick ass and take names and get the job done, that's the standard. You should be elevated. You should be able to achieve good levels, good pay on that standard. Because, 30 years in active addiction, that's equal to a PhD in my mind for a peer. But now I guess some jobs, if you're going to be an agency manager, maybe you need to learn to read and write and do math. So, but there again, if you can pass the test,
Right. But to your earlier point, in order to get to the point where peer services are reimbursed through commercial insurance, there will have to be some of those.
Look, commercial
guidelines.
insurance, they don't care. I don't think they really care. If they're saving them money, if a person with no education going to save them the most money, I think that should be okay. They should be allowed to do that. And I would think they'd want to do that, So I just think it's wrong and it's a barrier.
Well, so when I go to have that conversation around, really wanting to push peers to be reimbursed through commercial insurance, I'll ask those questions because I do think it makes sense. I'm curious what our insurance companies are looking for
But remember, it's up to each state to have that credentialing thing. You know what I mean? But in order for the state to give a credential, I don't think college or higher education, even GED, should be a standard to get a credential. If you can pass the test, if you do the classroom work, you do the community, the hours work, and if you can pass the exam, that's the credential. Now, if insurance companies come along, trust me, they want to save money, and they do want a good outcome. Who wouldn't want a good outcome? So if you can get a better outcome and save more money using a man or woman or person that doesn't even have a GED, but yet they passed that, they took the test and passed and got the credential, that should not be a barrier. Education should not be a barrier. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I think the guidelines that SAMHSA put out did eliminate the need for the GED, but said that there should be some literacy skills. So they should have some written and some kind of literacy skills. I can't remember the exact words.
That's what I'm saying. If you can pass the test and do the classroom work,
then you
can read and write. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You will have literacy skills. You're right. You need that.
Yeah.
But college don't make you a reader or a writer.
Yeah.
or GED doesn't make you that.
Yeah, we are like in Missouri, we've created a peer mentorship model. So peers that have been in the field are mentoring other peers that are new to the field. And that is one thing we are finding is like some peers do need some just basic skills, whether that's reading and writing skills or computer skills or things like that. And
Yeah,
so
you're gonna need to do. You're gonna have to need all that stuff. But you shouldn't have to have a GED or college or high school if you can get past all that stuff. Matter of fact, most kids today, if you look at these kids that are illiterate that they can't pass these writing and reading tests, you give them an iPhone when they're 8 years old, they will learn to read and write.
There you go.
With or without that test. Now, I do think if you're dealing with the juvenile population, you need a higher standard, a higher training. If you're dealing with a more mentally ill, bipolar population, you should be cross-trained. But there's still a caveat in the space for like your straight-up substance use disorder field. You know what I mean? People like me that want to work in that field, you know, I think our institutional knowledge, our recovery time, I think that should have great value to what we can and can't do in that field. You know, I'm not trying to be a juvenile counselor or a severely mentally ill, you know, caseworker. I'm not even trying to be a caseworker. You know, I just want to be me and be valued for it.
Yeah, and talk to other people and help them recover.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a trauma expert. I'm an expert on talking to somebody and drawing out the trauma. But I'm not so good at putting it back or, you know, this is what we need to do.
Yep. And that's what counselors.
I'll pass them off to a higher level of trained person.
That's why we need our counselors.
Yeah. You can sit at my recovery center and you send me 100 newcomers and I can do a great job just by being around that person for a short period of time, doing just a spiritual assessment, so to speak. And I'll know, whoa, this person needs to go see this level of care. This person needs to go over here, but this person here, you need to be quiet, sit down, listen to what my people got to say.
Yeah,
you know, we're real good at that. We're great front door people.
Yeah. Is McShin is it recovery support services only, or do you guys have licensed counselors?
You've seen it. You walked around.
Yeah, I was curious. Do you have
We are an awesome organization. We're like Mecca.
Are.
This is Mecca of recovery, of real recovery. Yeah, we do have clinicians in the building, but we don't do clinical services. You know, Richmond is surrounded by IOPs, clinical, you know, directed outpatient programs, Suboxone doctors. They even got a couple inpatient places around the state. You know, if that's their need, that's where they go. We'll get them there. We'll drive them there. And, you know, some cases we'll pay for it. You know what I mean? But I got 24 staff. We're all in recovery. Most of it, 23 of the 4 are in really a total abstinent-based recovery. We have one on medical cannabis, so to speak. Well, I take it, but we got several, I guess, on Suboxone, so, you know, replacement therapy and whatnot. And, you know, I think half of them take a psych med for something. But, you know, primarily, you know, we're people with lived experience that have successfully stopped using damaging, get high drugs and stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And hell, we got 16 houses in the area.
Yep.
Recovery houses. We're opening up a women's with children house.
Awesome.
We got that. We're painting it. I've been working 12 hours a day the last 3 days getting it ready for our first women with children. That's when Honesty's one of her first directives is the supreme leader here is we're going to open up a women and children's house. I said,
that's
okay,
awesome.
You're the boss.
Yeah, that's no joke either. Those are hard houses to open.
Oh, no question about it. I visited a few of them.
Yeah.
But you know who better to tackle it than an organization like us?
Exactly. And that's I love McShin and I love other RCOs that are very rooted in recovery support services because that is what a recovery community organization is supposed to be, is very recovery oriented instead of bringing in there is a place for treatment. There's a place for clinical services. There's a place for, you know, all these other services.
Now
but
I'm sure
RCOs.
I'm sure for a lot of listeners they'll think, that Shinholser, he's a hard ass, right? Well, I'm the guy. I want to have plant-based houses in our organization. I want to have these other type of populations and whatnot. You know, so in one regard, I'm a very aggressive, you know, free thinking, free spirit. You know, I do. I'm 100% behind. You know, you do anything that helps and works for sure.
Yeah.
I just don't want to be canceled as an abstinent-based guy. I just think that's wrong. You know,
Exactly.
So, you know, my fighting spirit comes out for myself as much as it does for others.
Yes.
Their right to choose their pathway. So I'm definitely, you know, fully on board with all this stuff.
And NPRA is the same way. It is all about, I think, we're doing our Raising the Bar for Recovery campaign in September. And it really is, we wholeheartedly believe in multiple pathways, but we do.
Absolutely. That's why I'm on the advisory, because I believe that. And not only that, you know, going back 23 years when I first started advocating full time, you know, I'm advocating for whatever works. Let's get it done. Yep. But I never thought in a million years they'd want to cancel me once we got the ball going.
Right.
So I would hope we attract people from all these pathways that want to advocate for their pathway as much as our pathway and not minimize or demonize anybody's pathway.
Yeah.
You know, especially, and even the emerging ones, you know, because that plant-based, you know, that can be controversial to some, you know.
Definitely.
You got microdosing, you got cannabis, you got kratom. You know, there's a lot of really good promising practices out there. And these loved ones that are losing their loved ones to fentanyl, you know, they don't care what pathway they get on, anything but the fentanyl pathway.
Yeah.
You know, so
and it is about having an open mind. And I think we learned that in recovery too. We have to come into it with an open mind.
Yeah, I mean, matter of fact, I had some harm reduction guys here yesterday.
Yeah.
And those, what do they call them? Safe consumption sites. You know, you look at Canada, the whole country's got safe consumption sites. They haven't had one death in these consumption sites. I mean, right there's your evidence that it works. And not only that, a very high percentage of people that utilize, the consumers that utilize the safe consumption sites go on to a recovery pathway. You know, many of them achieve recovery. So it only makes sense to me to have safe consumption sites all over America, monitor and engaging by people with lived experience. I mean, there's so much no-brainer stuff we could advocate for down the road, you know. Art, we good?
Yeah.
Is that me or her?
What do you think?
No, we're good, yeah.
Go ahead, Emily.
We're good. What do you think? So my question to that is, I guess I wonder why, like, do people ever ask you, like, why are overdose rates continuing to rise when we're doing all these things that are supposed to be helping?
Well, it's called fentanyl. That's why this overdose stuff, it's all about fentanyl right now. I mean, it's the most dangerous, deadliest substance I've ever seen in the history of the world. We've never seen this. Is just straight up poisoning our people.
Exactly.
And it's totally a Washington problem. You know, it's a congressional problem. You know, for whatever reason they co-signing it. You know, I don't know if they want to keep their DEA in operations, keep their war on drugs going, keep their criminal justice system happy. It's just crazy to me. You know, and it's citing several examples of mass death. You look at the Pearl Harbor bombing. A couple thousand sailors, Marines got killed in one day. We go to World War II. The Trade Center, 3,000 plus people got killed. We spent 20 years in Afghanistan. Yet we're losing at least 80,000 a year to fentanyl. You know, might be twice that if you can actually get the real cause of death for folks. But yet Congress sits on it. You know, it's like they allow the cartel to purchase products from overseas. India, China, Myanmar. You don't hear much about India and Myanmar, but they're right on the heels of the Chinese shipping these products over. Our consumers in America, they love all these goods, products, and services. It's like the people don't want to boycott. The stigma allows them to hate the addicts, let them die. You know, a lot of different mindsets out there.
Yeah.
two cartels responsible for, they say, 95% of the fentanyl. And guess what? We know where they're at. It's not like the Taliban. We had to run around and play whack-a-mole in the caves. We know where these main cartels are in Mexico, and we basically do nothing. I mean, so my 65 years on earth is telling me our lawmakers, our policymakers in Washington, for whatever reason, they don't put the hammer down, So a lot of that can go, but addiction will never go nowhere. Remember that.
Right. Yeah.
As long as our kids have unlimited access to sugar as a child, that gets the brain trained to be addicted. So when the next substance come along, when they hit puberty and boy meets girl and they're trying to outdo the other boy and girl to get the other boy and girl, they're going to do anything to get that attention. Next thing you know, there's always going to be a substance in the mix. I say bring back, real opium, powder coke, do away with all this other stuff. Basic alcohol and cannabis, and let it be a consumption driving thing after that, or you see if things don't go different.
Yeah,
I'm a free thinker though.
I mean, it is kind of scary with thinking about kids, and even it is scary for kids, and I think. I mean, you can't experiment like I experimented or like you experimented at all.
Fentanyl kill you. I mean, the experiment game ain't no fun no more.
Yeah.
I mean, bad enough you might die, do some acid, jump off a building, or wreck a car drinking, or forget to stop for a light, smoking weed, or whatever the thing is. You're going to have that anyway. That's never going nowhere. Yeah. People got to understand that. But as long as we allow these death products in this country, and that's just, we got issues. Yep. That's why they need us more than ever before. They need a demonstration of recovery.
Yes, recovery is possible.
Should you survive, trust me, you want recovery to be your story. You don't want keep messing up to be your story. Yeah. Yeah, we get in a rabbit hole sometimes on the show here.
We do. I don't know how we got to this point, but
because I'm the host, man. I'm a rabbit hole guy, man. I live in the hole. So what else about MPRA you want folks to know?
Oh, you should join.
Join National Peer Recovery Alliance. Art, we got anything, a logo or a website or anything we can pop up there?
No, but I can. I can put it up there. What is it? What's the
National
website?
Peer Recovery Alliance.
Peerrecoveryalliance.org. You want me to put the link into the comments?
You can do that, yeah.
Yeah, and he'll post it up on the big board here. No, but Emily, I tell you, I got a vision here before I die. And I'd like to see this in the next few years. I'm telling you what, we 500,000 members is what I want our target to be. Just regular peers like me and you of all walks of life, all pathways to recovery, harm reduction. I want to see when we get 500,000, then all of a sudden we got a voice, man. We have a constituency of concern. I've never seen that. Now I realize, faces and voices of recovery and facing addiction and NCADD and others, they've done gatherings, over the course of a year. They might have had 500,000 consumer attend one of their events or one of their associates events. But to have a standalone agency, a standalone association that actually has a membership roster, for a national membership roster, it shouldn't be hard to get 500,000 of us together. I just don't understand how it hadn't been done yet.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna make it happen.
You daggone right, we're gonna make it happen.
How do you think we should? What are your thoughts on how we should get more engagement?
I think social media. You gotta, you blow it up, you build it up social media, and you have great content. You constantly have something for them to attract them to, and I love the podcast. I think that's cool. I don't know anything about TikTok or the short 1-minute videos or 30-second videos, but folks, once you get your membership jumping on board, you have a contest like the bucket challenge or something. You do something like that to build your membership for National Peer Recovery Alliance. Who's got the best 60-second TikTok or whatever. Yep. There are ways to do it. Like I say, we're a smart population. That's what our logo looks like. That's the website. Yep. And we got the raise the bar one coming one day.
Yeah. Oh, if I had it handy, I would throw it up right now.
Now we got to be sure as we build our leadership up, we build up a nice, diverse leadership base too.
Yes. That's one thing that we need to work on a little bit. So it's
You got any ideas, any thoughts on that besides just saying we need to work on it?
Well, we did put together a diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility work group a little while ago. We just after around the holidays, we stopped meeting and we haven't met since. So our goal is just to bring, really, we all just need to bring people to the table.
Hey,
because we all know people.
We ought to ask people, like right now, do we have a landing page for folks to either just sign up or request to get involved?
Yep.
Think about that, because we put the call for, diversity, equity, inclusion. We need people of color. We need all this stuff. We want to make sure we do this thing right from the beginning. Invite people to be willing to pile on, join, or whatnot.
Yeah. I always say, that's the value of peer support to begin with. Like we have to identify with people in order to help people. We get to identify with people based on our substance use, but there's also other areas.
Yeah, I see a question. Art, put that one back. Oh, there you go. When you were talking about legal barriers, I missed what they were. Could you elaborate when you get a chance? That's from Betsy Bunce Purdue. Can you recall what we were talking about in it? Because I can, but I'd rather her hear it from you first.
We were talking about the exemption process, like felonies and things like that being a barrier to
lack of education can be a barrier. Breaking the law can be a barrier.
Mm-hmm.
You're not. They're different. It looks like moving forward as a nation, they're going to expand the qualifications to get your credentials, and there's a lot of stuff there that don't need to be there. So, Betsy, my big thing to you is I would go on SAMHSA's website, Substance Abuse Mental Health Service Administration. And right now, for review, they have these different what they call them, Emily. You're the young one. You're with the brain.
Standards.
Well, not only standards, but modules or whatever they were looking at. You got to get involved, Betsy, because there's going to be lots of barriers for lots of folks, and we want to make sure they're fair for everybody.
Yeah, I don't know how to put these into the regular comments, but I'm putting them into the private chat. And you guys can figure out if you want to share it.
Take that link, the SAMHSA link, put that on the big board.
Got it right here.
This is definitely a good thing for everyone to look at. Kind of give an idea where SAMHSA is going.
Yeah, but then keep in mind the states, they all do their own thing too.
Yep.
I remember in Virginia when we started rolling this out, and I worked on these work groups. I had the bureaucrats swearing that education wasn't going to be an issue, felonies weren't going to be an issue, and damned if they didn't put them in there. And these county and city agencies that hire peers, they got more barriers than Carter had peanuts, man. It's like no matter what we say, do, or ask for, or agree to, they create and do what they want.
Yeah.
I'm still fired up about that.
That's why we need a collective voice for peers.
Betsy,
and substance use disorder peers. I know, there's a place for all peers, and NPRA is definitely, we welcome all peers, but we do remain kind of focused on the substance use side.
I don't want to get lost in the sauce. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, we've been going for a while, Emily. Any closing thoughts, comments?
Not really. I appreciate you having me on. I'll have to come on more often. This is kind of fun.
We got to get Jimmy on here. Jimmy McGill, he bagged that on her.
I know. What would Jimmy have wanted to talk about?
Well, he double booked. Well, I know he wouldn't have wanted safe consumption sites. I'm sure of that, Jimmy's real outspoken on things.
Maybe we need a few more faces from NPRA on.
Well, I tell you what, we'll do a call for participation podcast, and maybe we'll get me, you, Jimmy, or whoever. I'll be glad to host it. Anybody, and nobody's got to show up. We'll just put it out there and have people tune in and we'll talk up National Peer Recovery Alliance, why we need to be a constituent of concern for everybody in everybody's pathway, and not to cancel anybody without cause just because somebody's feelings are hurt.
Well, and maybe we can have some of those tough conversations, because we do all need to, like, what I'm noticing is there are a lot of differing opinions around things like GEDs for peers, or safe consumption sites, or harm reduction. And we do, as a peer community, need to come together and have those hard conversations and be open-minded and be able to kind of.
Let me hold my hands a little different way.
Yeah.
I support all this stuff, but don't cancel the word abstinent. Don't cancel abstinence-based recovery.
We'll keep you in there.
Yeah, I mean, it's the canceling part that's getting in my craw.
I know it. I know.
Right.
I'm speaking generally. My goal is to get as many voices in the room as possible and see how we can have those conversations.
We get 500,000 people, we can poll then, you get a real poll going,
Yeah, exactly. And get real data, because sometimes I'm worried about the data that comes out. I'm not really sure what I can trust.
You're getting fake data. You're not in the data club. You can buy data, join the club, pay for it. But it might be fake, might be artificial intelligence that somebody got it wrong that day.
Another rabbit hole.
The rabbit hole. Art, love it. Art, you got anything you want to add? You listened to two great minds go at it.
Yeah, it was awesome. Appreciate you coming on, Emily.
Yeah, thank you,
That's
Art.
it? No other thoughts?
No other thoughts.
Oh, boy. Emily, anything before we close it out? I got another podcast at 1:30. I need to rest my voice for a few minutes.
I understand. Nope, that's it. I appreciate it. Join NPRA. We meet every month on the third Wednesday.
And big event coming up. You still got tickets for?
We have a big event coming up. It's in St. Louis Gala and auction.
St. Louis Gala and auction, and that's by the ARCHway and the National Peer Recovery Alliance.
Yep.
It's 2 weeks from now.
April 14th. So tickets are closed out, but if you are interested in attending, just shoot me an email. I can put my email in the comments as well.
Well, your email, you at National Peer Recovery Alliance, they can email you there. You just email Emily.
I get everything. So you call the number for ARCHway, you call the number, or you email NPRA, you're going to get me. So just out.
Very good. All right.
That's it.
That's it. We're gonna sign off. Thank you so much, Emily, for coming on today. Leading National Peer Recovery Alliance, and I do look forward to that 500,000 membership here in the next few years.
Yes.
So I'll see you at the top.
Yeah,
Bye,
exactly.
Emily. Thank you.
More be revealed.
Thanks.